Blackbeard. Blackbeard wasn't just a pirate. He was a walking nightmare. He'd braid his massive black beard into pigtails with colored ribbons, and before battle he'd tuck lit fuses under his hat, so smoke curled around his face like a demon from hell. The crazy thing is it worked. There's no verified account of him ever killing a captive. He didn't need to. At his peak, he commanded the Queen Anne's Revenge, a 40-gun warship with 300 men. He once blockaded Charleston for a week, holding prominent citizens hostage until they paid. For 2 years, he was untouchable. But in November 1718, his luck ran out. Virginia's governor sent Lieutenant Maynard to hunt him at Ocracoke Island. But Blackbeard didn't run. He grabbed a glass of wine and shouted, "Damnation seize my soul if I give you quarters or take any from you." He unleashed a broadside, killing a third of Maynard's men. Thinking he'd won, he boarded to finish them. But Maynard had hidden his crew below deck. They burst out, and 6 brutal minutes of chaos followed. Blackbeard took 5 gunshots and 20 sword cuts and kept fighting. A Highlander finally slashed his neck from behind. The second swing took his head clean off. Maynard hung that head from his bowsprit. They mounted it on a pole at Chesapeake Bay, where it rotted for years. His body was thrown overboard, and legend says it swam 3 laps around the ship before sinking. Later, his skull was turned into a silver-lined drinking cup used in taverns for decades. But Blackbeard wasn't the only pirate whose death became a public spectacle. Captain Kidd. Captain Kidd might be the most famous pirate in history. There's just one problem. He probably wasn't a pirate at all. In 1695, King William III personally commissioned Kidd to hunt down pirates in the Indian Ocean. He was a respected New York ship captain and wealthy property owner. The crown called him trusty and well-beloved, but his voyage was a disaster. A third of his crew died from disease. His men turned mutinous. Under pressure, he seized a ship called the Quedo Merchant, keeping the French passes that proved it was a legal wartime capture. By the time he returned, England needed a scapegoat. His powerful sponsors betrayed him. Governor Bellamont lured him to Boston with promises of a pardon, then had him arrested. Kidd spent 2 years in Newgate prison. His trial lasted just 2 days. The French passes mysteriously vanished. The only witnesses were mutinous crewmen who got pardons for their testimony. On May 23, 1701, they brought him to the gallows completely drunk. Someone had taken pity and given him enough alcohol to barely stand. They put the noose around his neck and dropped him, but the rope snapped. The crowd shouted it was a sign from God, but they ignored them and hanged him again. Then they coated his corpse in tar, locked it in an iron cage, and hung it over the Thames where it rotted for 3 years. Treasure hunters have searched for Kidd's buried gold for 3 centuries, but they've never found it because it probably never existed. François l'Olonnais. If you think Blackbeard was scary, you've never heard of François l'Olonnais. The Spanish called him the Bane of Spain, and their sailors would rather sink with their ship than surrender to him. L'Olonnais arrived in the Caribbean as an indentured servant. The Spanish worked him half to death. Once free, he swore to return the favor. Early in his career, soldiers ambushed his crew and killed everyone. L'Olonnais survived by covering himself in blood and hiding among the corpses. But eventually, he got his revenge. After capturing a Spanish ship, he personally beheaded the entire crew, except one. That survivor carried a message to Havana: "I shall never give quarter to any Spaniard whatsoever." L'Olonnais was a master torturer. He'd slice flesh off victims piece by piece. He'd tie rope around their heads and twist until their eyes popped out. He even burned people alive for fun. In 1667, while ambushed near San Pedro, he captured 2 Spanish soldiers. He drew his cutlass, cut open one man's chest, ripped out his beating heart, and bit into it like a wolf. Then he told the survivor, "I will serve you all alike if you don't show me another way." But in 1669, karma caught up. His ship ran aground near Panama, and he was captured by the Kuna tribe. They did to him what he'd done to so many others. They tore him apart limb by limb while still alive, threw each piece into the fire, and scattered his ashes so no trace would remain. Edward Lowe. Edward Lowe was so cruel that even other pirates called him a maniac. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle described him as a man of amazing and grotesque brutality. Lowe started as a Boston shiprigger with a wife and daughter. When his wife died in childbirth, something inside him snapped. He became a pirate in 1721 and terrorized both sides of the Atlantic, capturing over 100 ships. His creativity and torture was legendary. When a French cook annoyed him, Lowe burned the entire ship with the man tied to the mast, saying he would fry well. But his most infamous act came in 1723. A Portuguese captain dropped 11,000 gold coins into the sea rather than surrender them. Lowe flew into a rage. He slashed off the captain's lips with his cutlass, had them grilled, and forced the man to eat them while still hot. Then he murdered the entire crew. Lowe's savagery eventually became too much, even for pirates. His own crew voted him out and set him adrift with just 2 men in a small boat. No food and no water. A French ship found them half dead and brought Lowe to Martinique. When authorities discovered who he was, they hanged him before he could speak. Some say he escaped and was spotted years later as a Spanish gunner. Either way, the seas were safer without him. Stede Bonnet. Stede Bonnet proves that money can't buy everything, including a successful pirate career. In 1717, Bonnet was living the dream in Barbados. He owned a 400-acre sugar plantation, had a wife and 4 children, and was one of the wealthiest men on the island. Then one day, he simply walked away from all of it to become a pirate. Nobody knows why. Some say he was escaping a nagging wife. Others believe he had a mental breakdown. Whatever the reason, his approach was bizarre. Instead of stealing a ship like every other pirate, Bonnet bought one. He hired a crew and paid them fixed wages. There was just one problem. He had no idea how to sail. His inexperience made him a joke. When he met Blackbeard, the legendary pirate essentially took him prisoner on his own ship. Later, Blackbeard betrayed him completely, stealing all their loot and marooning Bonnet's crew. Bonnet returned to piracy, but was captured after a bloody 6-hour battle on the Cape Fear River. He escaped prison, but was quickly recaptured. At his execution on December 10, 1718, the gentleman pirate was a broken man. He wrote desperate letters begging for mercy, offering to become the governor's servant. Witnesses said he clutched a bouquet of flowers as he walked to the gallows, weeping and pleading. The execution was delayed 7 times because Charleston women pitied him. But pity wasn't enough. They hanged him anyway and buried him in the marsh. Black Caesar. Black Caesar went from African chief to slave to one of the most feared pirates in the Florida Keys. According to legend, Caesar was a powerful tribal leader in West Africa. He evaded slave traders for years, until one captain tricked him with a gold watch, promising greater treasures aboard his ship. Once Caesar and his warriors were on board, the ship quietly sailed away. By the time they realized, it was too late. During the voyage, Caesar refused to eat. He would have died if not for a sailor who befriended him. When a hurricane destroyed the ship near Florida, these two escaped on a longboat as the only survivors. Now free, they became pirates. They'd pose as shipwrecked sailors, wait for a ship to offer help, then rob it at gunpoint. They buried treasure on Elliott Key, but their partnership ended when both men wanted the same woman from a captured ship. Caesar killed his only friend in a duel. He built an empire in the Florida Keys. He kept a harem of 100 kidnapped women and a prison camp for hostages. When he left on raids, he often forgot to leave food. Many starved to death. Eventually, Caesar joined Blackbeard's crew. When Blackbeard was cornered by the Royal Navy in 1718, he gave Caesar one final order: to blow up the ship if they lost. Caesar stood in the powder room with a lit match, ready to kill everyone. 2 prisoners tackled him just before he could light the powder. They dragged him to Williamsburg and hanged him in chains. The man who'd been tricked onto a slave ship ended his life swinging from a rope on the same coast where he'd once been free. William Fly. William Fly had one of the shortest pirate careers in history. Just 3 months. But his death is considered the true end of the golden age of piracy. In April 1726, Fly signed on as boatswain aboard the Elizabeth, bound for West Africa. He clashed constantly with Captain Green over the brutal treatment of the crew. On May 27th, at 1 in the morning, Fly led a mutiny. They dragged the captain from his bed and threw him overboard. Green grabbed a rope in desperation. One of Fly's men chopped off his hand with an axe. The crew sewed a Jolly Roger, renamed the ship Fame's Revenge, and elected Fly captain. For 2 months, they raided ships off New England. But Fly made a fatal mistake. He sent most of his loyal men to capture a prize, leaving himself with just 3 pirates guarding 15 prisoners. The captives overpowered them and sailed to Boston. At his trial, Fly showed no remorse. Cotton Mather tried to save his soul, but Fly refused. On July the 12th, 1726, he walked to the gallows, smiling at the crowd. When he examined the noose, he even criticized the hangman for doing a poor job. Then he retied the knot himself and placed it around his own neck. They hanged him and put his body in an iron cage at the harbor entrance. Some pirates begged for mercy, while William Fly fixed his own noose. Olivier Levasseur. Olivier Levasseur committed the single greatest heist in pirate history. Almost 300 years later, no one has found the treasure. Born in Calais to a wealthy family, Levasseur was educated, became an architect, then a privateer for King Louis XIV. When the war ended, France ordered him home, but he became a pirate instead. A battle wound slowly blinded one eye, so he started wearing a black eye patch, helping create the image of the pirate we still picture today. On April 26, 1721, Levasseur spotted the Portuguese galleon Nossa Senhora do Cabo, anchored off Reunion Island. She carried the Bishop of Goa, the Viceroy of Portugal, and 10 years of accumulated treasure. But a storm had damaged her so badly the crew threw all 72 cannons overboard just to stay afloat, completely defenseless. The pirates didn't fire a single shot. They walked aboard and took everything: gold bars, diamonds, silk, pearls, and the fiery cross of Goa, solid gold encrusted with diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. So heavy it took 3 men to carry. When they divided the loot, each pirate received 42 diamonds plus the equivalent of millions in gold. For 9 years, Levasseur hid. But then they caught him. On July 7, 1730, He stood on the scaffold, noose waiting. According to legend, he threw a coded message into the crowd and shouted, "Find my treasure, the one who may understand it." They dropped him at 5 o'clock. The cryptogram has never been solved, and the treasure has never been found.